Shalom, shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom, giving honor and praise unto the Creator and the Maker of heaven and earth. My name is Yeshaya Yisrael of the tribe of Dan of the nation of Israel. This particular presentation, brothers and sisters, is going to be concerning the Shabbat and the understanding in Hebraic way of the word day. All right, so we can gain some understanding, brothers and sisters, for edification purposes. All right, brothers and sisters, let us start off, if we will, by looking at it from this particular aspect here. Okay, we have here, all right, the word Yom, Wagam, Shabbat, day, and also Shabbat. Now, this right here is just the ancient form of writing it. All right, so just wanted to point that out for reason and purposes. What we're going to do, okay, brothers and sisters, is erase this particular part and move on for edification purposes, if we will. Now, in the scriptures, brothers and sisters, it says that in the beginning, the Most High created the heavens and the earth. Now, it goes on in Genesis to tell you about the formation of the heavens and the earth in that particular case. All right. Now, the Most High said, Yahi or, let there be light. Wahi or, and there was light. And the Most High called the light day, and the darkness he called night. Now, in the Bible, in the book of Jeremiah, it speaks about the aspect of the Most High's covenant with the day and the Most High's covenant with the night. So, what some brothers and sisters have stated is that regarding Shabbat, right, that because it says in Exodus, Zakor et Yom HaShabbat L'Quacho, right? Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Some have stated that being that Genesis says he called the light day, and it says Shabbat day, therefore the Shabbat is only in, quote, the day, and not inclusive of also, as it says in the book of Genesis, from evening to evening. So we're going to, brothers and sisters, take out some time to go over this particular aspect, viewing it, if we will, from a Hebraic aspect and from the aspect, you might say, of, quote, both sides. I want to point this out, brothers and sisters, and that is this. In the scriptures, in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 16, if we will, we're going to read the English, and then we're going to read it in Hebrew for edification purposes. Okay? We are in the scriptures, Deuteronomy chapter 16 and verse 1. You shall observe the month of Abib and perform the Passover offering for the Lord your God. For in the month of Abib did the Lord your God take you out of Egypt by night. Now, that tells us that the Exodus happened of being brought up out of the land of Egypt at nighttime. That right there distinctly says that. The Hebrew word for night, brothers and sisters, we want to point out is this. All right? Layla. The word Layla, as you will see in the book of Exodus, pardon me, yes, you will see the Exodus, but here, as you see in Deuteronomy, also in the book of Genesis, is the word Layla. Okay, so we done read in Deuteronomy that it says Israel was brought up out of the land of Egypt at nighttime. All right, so now let's go from there, if we will, brothers and sisters, and go. I kind of jumped my portion in this particular case mentioned in Jeremiah, but let's go to Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 32. All right, so we can gain some understanding in what we are talking about. Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 32, and it reads on this wise. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Most High. I will put my law within them and write it in their heart. I will be a God to them, and they shall be my people. No, pardon me. Let me reread that. Verse 32. All right. Behold, the days come, saith the Most High, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers on the day that I took them by their hand to bring them forth out of the land of Egypt. Now, that right there is in the book, brothers and sisters, of Jeremiah chapter 31. Now, it distinctly says there, in the day that I brought them up out of Egypt, right in Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 32. Now, the word for day that you see in Jeremiah 31, verse 32, is this word here. All right, so Lila, all right, I, in this presentation, generally don't write the English. That's why I'm asking and pointing with this and stating Lila's night, Yom is day, okay? Now, Lila meaning night, Yom meaning day. Deuteronomy chapter 16 distinctly pointed out, brothers and sisters, right, that Israel left the land of Egypt at night, as we read. Right here in Jeremiah, it says in the day that he brought them out. So let's understand something. The covenant of the day and night is just that. It's between the Most High and day and night. That is not saying, brothers and sisters, that we humans have to oblige ourselves according to that particular covenant that he made with the day and night. You understand? The Most High has a covenant that he has made with everything that he has created. Let's point this out. In the book of Genesis, it says that the Most High made a covenant with Noah and his sons. But we know we the children of Israel. So the covenant that he made with the sons of Japheth has nothing to do with the children of Israel. The covenant that he made with the children of the Philistines has nothing to do with the children of Israel. So this is the point, brothers and sisters, that we want to point out for edification purposes. The Most High's covenant between him and the seed of David has nothing to do with the tribe of Gad. And the seed of David and the tribe of Gad are all Israelites. The covenant that the Most High made with the tribe of Levi has nothing to do with the tribe of Dan. So we have to understand what part do we have, or what part is assigned to us in the covenant that the Most High has spoken. Abraham and his seed is supposed to be circumcised. That's for all the people of Abraham's line. The Shabbat is a covenant between the Most High and the children of Israel. So now the other nations, yes, they can keep it, but they are not, say, as obliged as the Israelites are by covenant to keep it. So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we want to point out for edification purposes. So now when we discussing Yom Wagam Shabbat, day and also Shabbat, we want to talk about this particular aspect. One of the things that's stated is that it never says Sabbath night. Okay, but we know good and well and understand, brothers and sisters, this, that the book of Genesis chapter 1 verse 5 and in other parts, it says what? And it was evening and it was morning one day. So the word for evening, all right, is this word here, ered. And the word for morning is this word here, boquer. Now, according to the brothers and sisters who say that the Shabbat is only in the daylight part, they're saying that us who say from evening to evening, though it does say that in the scriptures, are following the customs of, quote, the Jew, if you will. So what other arguments have been presented was, well, the Hebrew is not important. We got to stop right there. Because once you take on the Hebrew name, you can't then say that Hebrew is not important. You can't say that Hebrew is not part of the covenant that Israel was made to reclaim. Why are you walking around with the name and title of Moreh, teacher, or Morah? Whatever name you assign yourself or that you agree to accept from someone else, and if it's in Hebrew, you cannot at the same token then say the Hebrew is not important. All right, so let's understand that in that particular case. So, brothers and sisters, knowing as we have read, for those who are joining on, already in the book of Deuteronomy 16 verse 1, it said that the children of Israel left the land of Egypt at night. Jeremiah chapter 31 verse 32 says in the day. So Deuteronomy 16:1 has this word Lila. And Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 32 has this word day. Now, the portion in Genesis that says consistently in chapter 1, and there was evening and there was morning, Yom Echad, one day. And there was evening and there was morning, Yom Sheni, second day. And there was evening and there was morning, Yom Shalishi, third day. And then it goes all the way down, brothers and sisters, to the sixth day. So in order to get from evening to morning, you have to go through the transition of Lila. We want to make that understood. The word for evening, as you see here, is the word Erev, which comes from, in root, the word Arab. The word Arab, brothers and sisters, means to mix or a mixture in the Hebraic thoughts. The word we see here, Boquer, comes from the root word Baqual. It has two meanings, one meaning to search, the other one meaning early. All right. So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we want to emphasize and point out for edification purposes. What else can we gather from this? The word we see here, Yom, does not only mean day. Did we know that? The word Yom does not only mean day. We want to point out another meaning in this. And this time I'm going to put the English. You have the common translation as the word day, and then you have the other one translation as the word time. In the book of Ezekiel 20, it says, in the day that he lifted up his hand, Adam was told, in the day that he does this, he shall surely die. It says in Genesis that the days of men have become shortened. And of course, as we know, the law that we see say in the book of Leviticus about clean and unclean, it says the man shall wash all his flesh in water and all his clothes, all right, and shall be unclean until the evening. So let's understand, say, about the woman's uncleanness in the book of Leviticus, which is part of the covenant that we have as Israelites. See, when you read, say, in the Torah, in this case, the book of Leviticus 11, that's part of the covenant that Deuteronomy 5 says is for us, the house of Israel. See, the Most High's covenant with the day and the night, that's between him and the day and the night. The laws, for instance, in Leviticus, that's for us. So we can't ignore the portion that is assigned to us in covenant while trying to sit there and say, you could do anything you want at nighttime per se, and then say, just keep the daylight part holy. That is not, brothers and sisters, what the Tanakh has ever emphasized. So this is something we want to point out for edification purposes. Now, brothers and sisters, in getting into this particular aspect here, again, with the word Yom, let us read something for clarity and understanding purposes. All right? We're going to read in the scriptures in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 10, verse 10, and see what we can gather from that particular aspect. And it reads as follows in the English. I remained on a mountain as the first time, 40 days and 40 nights. And the Lord listened to me this time as well. And the Lord did not wish to destroy you, or did not suffer you to consume you. Right? Now, what do we see there? Brothers and sisters, due respect with that, we're going to erase this particular part here, if we will, right? Brothers and sisters. And going to dry that off. Thank you for the time. With that, I figured being a left-handed brother, that it's better for me to stand on this side to do the presentation. Okay, for those who saw the presentation yesterday about Amen and Elohim and Baal, you understand why I said that. All right, so let's look at this, brothers and sisters. You have this word here, Yamim. All right? The word Yamim, brothers and sisters, right, is the plural of the word Yom. Now, in Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 10, it says in the Hebrew, Wa anoki, and I, amati, even I stood. Bahar, in the mount. Kayamim Harishonim, like the first days. Arba'im Yom, 40 days. Wa Arba'im Laila, and 40 nights. Wa Yishma Yah, and the Most High he heard. Eli, to me. Gam Bapa'am Hahi, also in that time. Lo Abba Yore Wahe. Hush, Ki Teka. The Most High did not suffer you for him to destroy you. Okay, so now when we're looking at this, Yom meaning day, right? Yamim here meaning days. Now, if we were to say that the word Yom and or its plural, Yamim, brothers and sisters, only means day and or not time, we would have to read the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 10, verse 10, as so in the English. It would say, I stayed in the mountain as at the first days, 40 days and 40 nights. So we know, as it says there, Kayamim, like days. And the word Arba'im, brothers and sisters, which is for edification purposes, the word for 40. Arba'im. All right. Kayamim Harishonim, as at the first days. But this word Yamim is translated in Deuteronomy 10, verse 10, brothers and sisters, for those following along in the scriptures, as the word time. Just like people would say in these days and times, or as people may say in a day of such and such. Brothers and sisters, let us wrap this particular aspect up for edification purposes. Yom means day and time. We have to know context clues to know how to translate this word in that particular case. The covenant that the Most High made with the day and the night that we read of in Jeremiah, I want to state, brothers and sisters, has nothing to do with us as humans. That's his covenant with the day and the night. All right. So now, brothers and sisters, if we know our portion as the house of Israel, Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 3 says that the Most High made not this covenant with our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but with us, even us, all of us here today. Part of that covenant is, brothers and sisters, the laws of clean and unclean. When a man ejaculates, according to Leviticus chapter 15, it says that he is unclean until the evening. So if he does that with his wife, as it says in Leviticus chapter 15, right? They are supposed to wash themselves and be unclean until the evening. So if they do it according, say, to the timing we're dealing with on a clock, right? At 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., when it's still, quote, dark outside. You understand? How will we deal with that particular matter? Pardon the phone call. Hello. Hello, yes. I appreciate it. Thank you. I apologize about that, brothers and sisters. All right, so Kayamim Arba'im, 40 days. So that just goes to show what we're dealing with for edification purposes. All right. Closing out, again, pardon the call. I had to take that. All right. Sorry, I know this is a live presentation. Nonetheless, brothers and sisters, we want to erase this particular part and then go over the word Shabbat. Now, there are brothers and sisters who might say that the Shabbat, whether they say it's only in the daylight, whether they say it is lunar, brothers and sisters, we want to point out that there are some who even say we don't even need to keep it whatsoever. That right there, brothers and sisters, is not accurate. Now, one of the things that some may try to point out, we want to emphasize, is Numbers, the 28th chapter, brothers and sisters, it speaks about the offerings that the people will be doing on the Sabbath, right? And because we won't and cannot do offerings on this side of the water in the land of our exile, all right, or namely outside of our homeland, the land of Israel, at the place where he chose to cause his name to dwell, right? Brothers and sisters, there is some teaching that we should not and cannot, and we are in violation of saying that we would keep the Shabbat. First, let's understand something, brothers and sisters, for edification purposes, right? The word Shabbat, all right, is a verb. All right, let's understand that for understanding purposes, if we will. Okay, the word Shabbat is a verb. The word Shabbat means to desist or to cease. The word Shabbat does not honestly and truthfully mean rest. All right, it does not mean rest. It means, brothers and sisters, cease or cessation from. Okay, so we want to, brothers and sisters, go over a couple of aspects of such. All right, if we will. Let's look at this, being that it's a verb, right? Shabbat. Its plural is shatot. Sometimes you might see it as this. All right, with or without the wow, with the cholam aspect there. All right, so we want to point that out for reason and purposes. Now, brothers and sisters, in the book of Isaiah as well as in Leviticus, it talks about the land having a Sabbath. Being that the land is treated in its feminine, you would have it as this. Shab Ta. All right. And you would have the Kwamat shown with the hay aspect, if we will, due to it being treated in this feminine case, if we're talking about the land itself. So here we have Shabbat, here we have Shabtot, all right? And that's the plural form of such. So Sabbath and Sabbaths, okay? Now, brothers and sisters, if we will, you have this word here. Tishbot, brothers and sisters. The word Shin Bet Tau, Shin Bet Tau, Shin Bet Tau, Shin Bet Tau, Shin Bet Tau is all within that. Tishbot, brothers and sisters, means you will cease. Okay? Now, for those who understand the verb structures of the language, this falls under the qual stem or the first stem of Hebrew. All right? I want to point that out for reason and purposes. We have, brothers and sisters, if we will, right? This word here. This word here, mashbit. Shin Bet Tau still in there. What is the distinction with this? This word here, mashbit, is the present tense in the he filled stem. So here we have Shabbat, the verb, the Shabbat verb treated in the feminine past tense. And then we got Shabbat treated in the second person future tense in the masculine and the future tense third person singular. So tishbot literally would mean you will cease, or it can mean she will cease. So we just want to point that out for reason and purposes. Here we have the word mashbit, if we will. All right, shin bet tau. This is the he filled stem, which is the causative of the qual stem. So if Shabbat in verb means to cease, we have mashbit, which means to cause to cease. When we read the sad situation in Isaiah, when it says, cause the Holy One of Israel to cease from among us, that is the root word that's used there. Hashbitu. Kodesh Yisrael Memenu. Cause the Holy One of Israel to cease from before us or from us. Brothers and sisters, we don't want that. We don't want the Holy One of Israel to cease from us. All right. So just wanted to show, nonetheless, in the Hebraic aspect, though, if we will, how that works in that particular case. All right. So now that we've gone over the aspect of the Hebraic understanding of the word Yom, brothers and sisters, and the word Shabbat, there are, and I'm not ever going to portray myself as the best or the most righteous Sabbath keeper throughout my 30-something years of knowing myself as an Israelite. Nonetheless, what I will say, brothers and sisters, is this. There are two reasons as to why males teach, if we will, to not keep the Sabbath. This is one of them, if we will. This right here, green. When you find men in Israel teaching to not keep the Sabbath, they want that overtime at the job. They're not trying to have some Sabbath day sit there and stop them from getting their paper, as the saying goes. The other reason why men teach in Israel to not keep the Sabbath, which not able to show because of women, and it ain't the women's fault. So what am I saying about the brothers who teach to not keep the Sabbath? It's because of nashim, or women, or kesef, or money. Those are the reasons why that is the case. And we know that's the case because of this. The reasoning given is we're not in our land, and because of such, we can't do sacrifices. And the Torah tells you you're supposed to do an offering on the Sabbath in Numbers, the 28th chapter. The offering that it talks about, we're going to read in Numbers 28 right now. All right? The 28th chapter of the book of Numbers says this. We're going to go in verse 1 and then go to, brothers and sisters, verse 5. Okay? No, verse 9, sorry. Verse 1 to verse 9, Numbers 28, 1. The Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, command the children of Israel and say unto them. Now let's go to verse 9. And on the Sabbath day, 2 male lambs of the first year without blemish, 2/10 ephah of fine flour for a meal offering mixed with oil, and its libation, the burnt offering of each Sabbath on its own Sabbath, in addition to the continual burnt offering and its libation. The continual burnt offering and libation is the offering that was going to be done every single day from Yom Rishon until the Shabbat. So what happens is then on Shabbat, you have 2, because you got it for the day of the Shabbat, then you got it for the fact that it's a day. All right, so you have 4 lambs that are offered. So that is one of the reasons, because we can't do offerings in the land of exile, that some people say, not being 100 about it, is really because you like the sister or you want to get that overtime at the job. That's the true reason. But some people are going to say it's because of the offering matter, as if you're going to throw it back in the Most High's face by saying, well, you know what? Yah, you put us in captivity. I can't keep your holy day. That's not the reason. And I'm saying this as a brother who has not always kept every Shabbat since he was being brought up since a baby in the understanding of Yisrael. So now, brothers and sisters, in this particular case, if we will, right? Let us look at this. The offerings were done, but not by every single Israelite. Numbers, the 18th chapter, tells us that the people, when they give of their free will offerings to the priest. That would be that what they will be sacrificing. You understand? There were 600,000 Israelites that left at the Exodus, which according to some people, being that, and those are just the males, which according to some people, including the women and children, would mean that there's way over 1 million people that left during the Exodus. You understand? The book of Deuteronomy says that Israel was multiplied 10 times more after the Exodus, before they got into the promised land. So if we take in those calculations, we're talking in the millions of people, brothers and sisters, that went under the leadership of Joshua, the son of Nun. Right? Now, the Levites were the smallest tribe in the house of Israel. Were, brothers and sisters, every Israelite supposed to bring up an offering? No. First off, you have, as the scriptures talks about, from Dan to Beersheba, which, according to some, is basically saying from Staten Island of New York, going all the way as far as like into Canada, north and south. So, brothers and sisters, if you had the tribes on the east side of the Jordan, they would not cross the Jordan to go over to where the place of Jerusalem was. All Israel could not fit bringing offerings on every Shabbat there. And if that understanding that is taught, because see, when you're thinking about that money and you're thinking about that sister is looking fine, wisdom is not going to go into your circumference. That's why that statement of, well, the people have to bring an offering, not realizing we're talking giving a lower figure over 1 million offerings every Shabbat. I have seen, not going to name where, I have seen animals among Israelites get taken from one spot and how they fight and struggle and so forth and so on to be slain. You're telling me that out of 2 lambs I remember seeing, one was struggling to be brought up to be slain. And if we're talking lower figure in ancient days, about 1 million, so we're speaking round off lower figures, 500,000 animals that might be struggling. Brothers and sisters, that's not wisdom. People forgot perhaps Numbers, the 18th chapter. Numbers 18th chapter distinctly says that the offerings that the Levites would bring will come from the Israelites during the course of the week from their tithes and offerings that they would give in their free will donations. That is something that we want to point out for edification purposes. You have to understand about the culture of the people, and remember, it distinctly tells you, brothers and sisters, on the sad case, that there will always be poor in the land. So if there's always sadly going to be those who are not as affluent as others, economic status and so forth and so on, some going to be rich more than others. You understand? Everybody can't afford 2 lambs to bring up every week. That is a lot of money. That requires a lot of revenue. So what do we know and understand, brothers and sisters? It distinctly says this, if we will. When we read, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. That would mean that during the course of the 6 days, we're supposed to be putting in work. That's a commandment. But the 7th day is the Sabbath unto Yah your power. In it you shall not do any manner of work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant. So now it says concerning this, you, nor your son, nor your daughter. If you don't have a son and daughter, can you still keep the Shabbat? To the people who say that we can't keep Shabbat in exile, you can't keep Shabbat outside of the land of outside of your homeland, outside of the land of Israel. Would the people, brothers and sisters, if we're going in Exodus with the understanding that some have, it says you, your son, and your daughter. Some people don't have children. Your manservant. Some people don't have a maid or a butler or so forth and so on. Right? Nor the cattle. Some people don't have no pets. Nor the stranger that is within your gates. Some people do not have that aspect of having their gates. So what do we know and understand in the covenant that is made for us? The book, brothers and sisters, of Ezekiel, it tells us that the Most High will be a little sanctuary for us as a people, but that wisdom flees men because you're thinking about that kesef and that isha, that money, that paper, that bread, that guap, if you want to put it like that, or the sister, the lady, so forth. I ain't going to use the other terminology they refer to some females as. You understand? In respect. So, brothers and sisters, this is something we want to point out, if we will, for edification purposes. All right? Now, in closing this particular presentation out, we can't say because Numbers 28 says about the offerings is a reason why we can't do Shabbat. Because even in our homeland, everyone could not afford to bring two lambs. That wisdom flees because he's thinking about the sister that he wants to go out with Friday night because he just got paid. And he was thinking about that all week long. And he ain't going to let no Sabbath stop him from getting his, so to speak. You understand? So then you have brothers and sisters. The other teaching that says Yom only means day like the daylight. But we pointed that out, brothers and sisters, that the day is constituted by evening and morning. So in order for it to go from evening to morning, you have to have it to where it goes into the aspect, brothers and sisters, of night. We've shown how in Deuteronomy 16, it says that Israel was brought up out of the land of Egypt, Layala, at night. And Jeremiah 31 says that in the day that Israel was brought out. That's how we know the English. This is why we keep pushing Hebrew the way we do, because if you just stay in English and don't have the understanding of what it's talking about as a brother or a sister, or if you're a brother who wants to take the sister out Friday night, you're going to try to make up and find your reasoning for such. While you're talking about the covenant of the day and the night, we're forgetting the covenant that the Most High made with the children of Israel. And in that covenant, it includes if you are unclean, you have to wash yourself and be unclean to the next evening. So if you become unclean as a man now or a woman at 3 a.m., which is still dark time, you then know and understand that you have to wash yourself and then you be unclean until that next evening. That shows you there's a connection with the timing for us as humans. There's nothing in the scriptures, brothers and sisters, that lets us know the Most High's covenant of the day and night for us to observe. What we are told to observe is his laws, his statutes, and his commandments. You understand? There are Israelites who were teaching that the Shabbat is only, quote, in the daylight part. Done been carnal with their wife on Friday night and then can't go out to the camp because they're unclean. Or partied on Friday night and can't go to the Shabbat class because they're too tired on, quote, Saturday morning. Don't you realize that there's something connected with the times then? We have to know and understand, brothers and sisters, what we're dealing with in wisdom. Lastly, the timing of Yom Kippur, brothers and sisters, right? It explains that from the 9th day at evening until the 10th day at evening, you are supposed to keep the Day of Atonement. So if Leviticus 23 is saying concerning Yom HaKippurim, or the Day of Atonement, right? And it's telling you in Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, that it starts on the 9th day at evening. That's part of our covenant with the Most High. The Most High's covenant with us. Now, what the Most High does with his covenant with day and night, that's between the Most High and his covenant with day and night. But what we are told to do is to know and understand from evening to evening in that case. Shalom. Most High bless.